Welcome to GlideTrak. Harness use and saddle use from a chair to the unit. Start with the balance harness. Open it up, spread it out, and lay it out over the chair before the client is placed into the chair. Make sure to lay out the straps and the perineal pad before the client is placed into the chair. Now, place the shoulder straps over his shoulders, and then we'll find the color-coded webbing straps around the waist and click the buckles together.
So red, purple to purple.
Sometimes you may confuse a buckle and get something trapped. Well, take your time, and in this case I had a blue one that was closed over the purple one. There we go.
Three harnesses, purple, red, and blue. Now, adjust this just a tad.
Adjust the shoulder straps slightly so that they're not tight but snug. Tightening the chest straps around him, and now bringing up the perineal place. We need to work it back on the client a little bit. If they're completely immobile, we can lift their legs and shove it back a little bit. There's a clasp on the left and the right, and again they're color-coded for ease of use. Snugging things up well, we're in good shape.
Feel good? It's good.
Now we'll remove the saddle assembly from the GlideTrak to prepare it for harness use. Let's place the saddle aside and leave the training strap, the training shoulder strap, where it is, and let's roll the GlideTrak well behind the treadmill, leaving room for the chair to be wheeled between the GlideTrak and the treadmill. Roll the wheeled chair now between the treadmill and the GlideTrak.
Okay. Pretty shape. Good. Okay.
Now roll the track over the client until he's in the middle. We may have to lower the head if the wheelchair is particularly tall. Now take the 3-to-1's hoist strap and, releasing the buckle, pull the strap to lengthen it so that it may be attached to the top of the GlideTrak for helping to lift the client safely. Great. Now we're going to help to stand the patient up. Some patients may require two aids to assist, but we pull on the 3-to-1 hoist at the same time as we lift the client until we lift him and support him fairly well off the ground. Now we take the shoulder harness, or the training shoulder harness, that's normally used around the shoulders of a healthy client who doesn't need the balance strap, and we open it up so that it may be connected around the buttocks of the client.
Yeah, lots of straps.
Then
Good rip.
it is attached to the front of the treadmill, and if you notice how the client is leaning at an angle, This strap is meant to pull him straight. Many units have 2 shoulder straps to lift the client straight. The GlideTrak is designed to fit in an 8-foot room and as a result only has 1 lifting point. Then we use this forward strap to pull the client into a vertical position, allowing us to avoid having to have a 10-foot ceiling for gait training with a harness.
I can't tell, so I'm just gonna run with it.
And as you see, now we'll lift the patient forward. There we go. And he's a little low, so we'll probably want to lift him higher. And we can literally take him right off the ground. That may require more than 1 aid. Moving the treadmill closer to the client's feet, we then can lift the client up onto the treadmill, having him hold onto the front of the GlideTrak, and we'll go ahead and lift him higher again. Pulling on the 3-to-1 hoist at the same time as we lift. Now the client is ready to be rolled over the unit for primary postural support and early gait training in a full body support harness.
Start gait training. How you feeling? Good.
We just started the treadmill at a half mile an hour, and it is possible now for anyone to work with a client's legs, allowing the treadmill to pull the client's leg back after a step. The trainer can literally throw the leg forward. This induces change in the brain, reconnecting sometimes neuromuscular networks that haven't been used in a while. High-level functional gains have been recorded after training with bodyweight supported treadmill training in this fashion. In this case, I think the client is a little low still, so we're going to want to lift him. And in this case, we showed that we can lift him right off the ground. I like doing that sometimes because then I can use the incline feature of the treadmill to get exactly the kind of contact that I like on the bottom of the foot, a flat fall. In this case, the client has some dorsiflexion issues, and by leaving him a little bit high, we can begin to train his legs to go through a more full range of motion without having to worry about lifting the toes. And we can force the range of motion. Now in this case, we'll simulate correcting of dorsiflexion with cueing, where we literally cue the client to engage his muscles whenever possible to train the foot to lift. Just a sample.
Oh, here it goes. That should be pretty good.
Small corrections could be made anytime to the incline feature.
Really nicely.
But it's time to stop this in harness-based training and move on to the saddle assembly. Harness-based training is good for early postural control and early gait training. But the limits of the harness on constriction around the chest, etc., won't allow for the fast movement necessary to engage the automated parts of the gait function. So first we'll remove the training strap that held the client vertical and lifted him forward. We'll allow his weight to go back into this safety harness. Lifting the saddle assembly now, we'll take the top forward strap and pick a hole even with the client's chin. The second lower strap will go just 2 holes below that. Follow your card for how to set up and use the saddle assembly. Making sure the ratchets are unwound. Now we're going to look at the client's saddle settings. And I'm pretty familiar with his, so I just went ahead and made the simple adjustments. Follow your manual and check how to adjust the client's. Separate the client's feet and pull the saddle assembly up through his legs. Take the lower rear strap and find a hole even with the client's trochanter or even 1 hole higher. Then the safety strap normally can fit into a hole 2 or 3 above the setting of the lower rear strap. Great. Now we'll lift the client a little higher in the rear to get the lower part of the saddle horizontal, and bring the client's feet together a little bit. Allow him to make some adjustments for himself if he'd like to pull his pants down or whatever. And using the ratchets, we can go ahead and lift the client completely off the ground if we want, which often is a nice way to go, because then we can use the incline feature to bring him back up. The client will soon become accustomed to being unweighted and try to move. As you see, he's lifted way too high right now for normal gait. However, if he's suffering from bad dorsiflexion, we could start with some leg movement and then bring the treadmill deck up to him using the incline feature to get, as you see now, a flat foot with a really nice heel strike. And we'll sometimes test the client to let him see that he is nice and safe. He can't fall to the left or right, which is very, very confidence building. And we could begin some gait training at a slow speed, just like we were with the harness system, except the client is going to be much more comfortable with this particular setup. You can start to get him to counter-rotate his upper body and to move his legs and correct his posture, getting him to lift up. I like to tell them to look toward the clouds and think about walking on an old trail that they like to. In this case, I wanted to lower the client a little bit more from the harness to allow more weight to go into the saddle. Now, generally, we can see we can get him quite a bit more speed than in early postural training with the harness. It's often good to push the speed to where the client begins to lose control and then back down, and continue to force that higher level of walking speed until hopefully one day you can reach community walking speed of 3.2. So here we're going to increase the speed a little. And you see the client actually will respond. Sometimes it is actually easier to get people to walk more quickly than it is to get them to walk slowly.
Okay, Paul, this is great. Now we're going to get you out of this room.
Oh.
Well, now we'll demonstrate removing the client or dismounting the entire system. Stop the treadmill first. And starting at the rear, we remove the safety strap by lifting the saddle assembly a little bit from the tail with one hand, and then the lower strap will release the body weight to the client. I work from the rear of the GlideTrak, as you can lean your body against the frame to avoid undue pressure on shoulder muscles. Slip the saddle assembly through the client's legs and remove the saddle from the unit. Right now I was clicking off the brakes to get the treadmill to move. Checking on the client's condition. We'll remove the saddle assembly now to have a nice clean setup. Now the client's ready to roll backwards.
You need it.
You can lower the client a little bit more if you'd like at this point. Get him to hold his hands on the front for stability. By lowering at this point, he would not be lifted so high off the ground as you see. But in this case, we can show you can be lifted off the ground and nothing is amiss. The harness is relatively comfortable for short periods of time with full lift. However, it is hard to walk with 100% unweighting. So lowering the client to give him more stability, we'll now bring the chair in around the rear of the client. Some chairs are tall, so you have to maneuver them a little bit more. Now very carefully, lower the client a little at a time by clicking the release.
Good workout.
But do not hold the release in and
Yeah.
allow him to go too fast.
There we go.
Now we'll remove the saddle assembly
Slide the treadmill, GlideTrak back over.
and allow the client to practice functional gains by walking across the
And
ground.
then you're done.
Phew. And also getting you out of this real quick.
This is an important step as we remove
Yeah.
after we remove the harness system to allow the embedding of any functional gains that may have occurred. Right now we're just taking apart all the straps and allowing the harness to return to the chair. And we'll go ahead and lift the client, essentially being finished with the gait training part and ready for functional recovery practice over the ground.
Okay. Let's bow for you guys. Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching our saddle and harness system from a chair video.